The name of my photo project is Life in Peril, Tanzanian Albino People. And the project started in about 2008, 2009, and was in direct response to an article that I read in the New York Times by the East African journalist Geoffrey Gettleman. And in the article he highlighted the plight of albino people in Tanzania, the fact that witch doctors were using their body parts in potions and selling them as get-rich-quick potions. When I read the article, it shocked me and really made me think twice. I'd spent some time in Tanzania, and I had travelled to some remote places and seen a lot of what I considered a broad slice of Tanzanian life, and so I was shocked that something so horrific could be happening anywhere in the world in 2008, and so decided to do some more research and went to Tanzania to start a project. My idea with the project was to raise awareness of the plight of albino people, and then in doing some more research realised that there was so much more to the project because there were so many other impacts on the albino population. Their social, economical and health status is just dire, and they face so many difficulties. Because of the lack of melanin in their skin, for instance, they have no UV protection and they don't have good access to sunblock like we do in Europe and in the West. With the lack of UV protection, there isn't even good education surrounding the topic of skincare and skin protection. They also have problems with vision because of the lack of melanin, and so the impacts of that are twofold. One is that they're discriminated against in general, and so often don't get very good education, or they're discriminated against at school and in the classroom. And if they're in the classroom, their poor vision prevents them from even seeing the blackboard. So in general, they tend to have lower education, and so their chances of getting a good job are less. In general, they'll tend to find jobs working more menial tasks out in the fields, selling products on the streets in the searing sun, again having more impact on their skin. And then to lead on from that, there are very, very limited resources for their healthcare. There's one oncology centre in East Africa, in Dar es Salaam, and for a lot of the people, physically getting there is so difficult. Some of the journeys are 5 days by bus, and even if they could make it physically with the time, they don't have resources to go, or their family can't even provide for them. And then the vision aspect is another aspect, trying to help with resources on that. And also the education of the general community around the issue of albinism, what it means to be albino. A lot of problems come up with a mother having an albino child. The father may think that she has either cheated on him, that this child is not biologically his, or that she's somehow cursed, and so he will leave and start another family, leaving the mother and the children destitute, and also living perhaps with the shame from the community, because the community at large don't understand. And so a large part of our project has been travelling to remote areas, identifying who the albino people are, working along with the Tanzanian Albino Society to do that. And my idea in going to each area was to also reach out to the social workers who are there, because the idea that if they're informed and aware of the people in their area who have these issues, what the issues are and how they can be resolved, was very, very key. So that, as well as the photography that comes from this project, that there is an immediate response, and that there is a continuous, sustained response within the community, and that comes with education. And so the other side of the project is taking the photographs. And before I take any photograph, what I really want to do is understand the subject, not only the issue of albinism, but how that directly impacts the individual that I'm photographing, what their personal experience has been. And there are so many things that we can maybe think we know, or assume that we know, or think that because we've heard one person's experience and it's this, that's going to apply to another person. It may not. And so really finding out what that issue is, and then for me trying to find a way that I can photograph that person to honestly tell their story and to have the impact on the viewer of what that message is and how they will perceive it, and ultimately to respond, to do something to help people, whether it's talking about the project, word of mouth, just highlighting the issue that it even exists, because for so many people, you know, it's an issue that many people aren't even aware of. And the incidence of albinism in Africa, in parts of Africa and in Tanzania in particular, is about 5 times higher than it is in Europe and North America, and their resources are so much less. And so it's something that I think people in general will identify with and want to help. As a result of the photographs, I've been working in a couple of different phases. After the first phase of the project, I wanted to return to do a second phase and follow up with some of the people I had met. And so I organised an auction, an art auction. And so as a combined event, we had an exhibition of some of the photos. I talked about my project, and we raised over $15,000. That money then helped me to go back, continue with the project, and the first phase I had a wonderful albino person called Joseph who had assisted. He volunteered to come with me on my project and to help me identify albino families and to translate. And so in the second phase I was actually able to pay him for his work. We were able to hire a driver, we were able to go, and when we found people who had a particular problem, for instance with skin care, and needed a clinic visit, we could provide the money for them to go and make that visit. And there was also one particular man in a very remote area. We found him, and he was living on a remote farm with his family. His whole eye had a tumour behind, and he had other cancerous lesions. And he had had treatment in the oncology centre in Dar es Salaam a few years prior, but had not been able to go back to have follow-up treatments or care. And so our project was able to fund him and a person to go along as a chaperone with him on his journey back to Dar es Salaam, which was a 2-day bus trip. We were able to pay for him to stay in Dar es Salaam and buy some supplies for his visit, to, you know, simple things that we take for granted, maybe like hygiene products, pajamas for the hospital. And when we went to the hospital, also realized that there were so many more people on the wards who needed help. They're doubling up in beds, 2 men to a bed, sleeping top to toe. Some of them don't even have soap or toothpaste. And so our project was able to also buy some products like that. With the assistance of Blue Earth Alliance, the project has had exhibitions at the Photo Centre Northwest and also at the Annenberg Space for Photography in LA. And as a result of that exposure, I've had a lot of, you know, interest and contacts and people who are interested to follow up with the project and assist on the next phase. When I want to go and take a photograph of the person, I'll introduce myself like I would to anybody and talk to them, get to know them, and let them know what the intent of the project is. what we're interested in, and ask them for their perspectives and what if they would like to contribute, and what they would like to contribute. And to the other part is that I think follow-up's always important as well. With people that you photograph, they're giving you a lot of trust, and it's always good to honour that trust and respect and return with photographs, or whatever you can do to repay them for assisting you also with your work. I think photography engages people in many ways. I think there's something about a still image that the viewer has to stop and also be still in that moment as they view it. And so it gives time for them to absorb whatever is in that image. And I think that we're such visual people. We don't need a lot of words to describe something. A powerful image will convey your story so quickly, or it will move us. We may look at an image and for whatever reason feel emotional or happy or sad, whatever the emotion is, and depending on the subject and how you want the viewer to then continue, you can guide them on in that way. I'm planning a third phase on my project, and so we'll have a website with the entire project and ways that people can help donate to the albino people. I'm planning to work with an organisation to enhance that funding.